On November 14, 1973, it felt like the whole world stopped for a royal wedding. The first of Queen Elizabeth II's children was tying the knot, and it was a spectacle for the ages. You had the princess, the palace, and a grand ceremony at Westminster Abbey broadcast in color to a staggering estimated audience of 500 million people. The day was declared a national holiday in the UK, a welcome moment of celebration during a time of national crisis. But behind all the pomp and circumstance, this wasn't your typical royal union. This was something else entirely. The bride was the Queen's famously no-nonsense, fiercely independent daughter. The groom? A commoner, a captain in the army, who was far more at home in a stable than a stateroom. Their story wasn't some whirlwind courtly romance, it was forged in the mud and grit of the equestrian world they both loved so fiercely. This was a royal wedding of a different kind, one that tried to blend ancient tradition with a modern, down-to-earth spirit. It was a union that would ultimately test the boundaries of love, duty, and what it meant to be royal in the modern age. To really get the wedding, you first have to understand the couple. Princess Anne, born in 1950, was the Queen's only daughter, and from day one, it was clear she was cut from a different cloth. While her older brother, Charles, was being groomed for the throne, and was busy carving out her own identity. She was sharp, witty, and famously direct, some might even say blunt. Her true passion was for horses, and this was no casual hobby. She was a world-class equestrian. In 1971, she won the individual title at the European Eventing Championships, which even led to her being voted BBC Sports Personality of the Year. She was a serious, driven athlete. And then there was Captain Mark Phillips. Born in 1948 to a military family, he followed a fairly traditional path, the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, then a commission in the Queen's Dragoon Guards. But just like Anne, his real life was with horses. He was a phenomenal rider and a key member of Britain's equestrian team, even winning an Olympic gold medal as part of the team event at the 1972 Munich Games. It almost feels inevitable that they would find each other. They first met not at a palace ball, but at an event for horse lovers during the 1968 Mexico City Olympics. Their connection was instant, built on a shared language of discipline, competition, and a deep love for the equestrian life. Before Mark, and had been linked to other men, most famously Andrew Parker Bowles, who would go on to marry Camilla Shand. But her bond with Mark felt different. It was a partnership of equals, at least inside the riding arena. Their engagement was announced on May 29, 1973. Captain Phillips gave Anne a classic Garrard ring, a beautiful sapphire set between two diamonds. It was lovely, but noticeably more modest than the massive jewels of other royal engagements, maybe a quiet nod to the tough economic times in Britain. During their engagement interview, Anne's signature bluntness was on full display. When a reporter asked if their marriage could withstand the pressure, she shot back with a wry confidence, "Can? It's got to, hasn't it?" It perfectly captured her pragmatic view of the fairy tale she was walking into. Their romance blossomed away from the public eye, a low-key courtship that was the complete opposite of the massive global event their wedding would become. The wedding day, November 14, 1973, which also happened to be Prince Charles's 25th birthday, was a bank holiday, and Britain came to a standstill. An estimated 500 million people tuned in worldwide, making it one of the most watched television events of its time. Thousands more lined the streets of London, waving flags and hoping to catch a glimpse of the princess. The ceremony at Westminster Abbey, led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, was a masterclass in royal tradition. Princess Anne arrived with her father, Prince Philip, in the glass state coach. She walked down the aisle looking every bit the princess in a Tudor-style embroidered gown by Maureen Baker, with a high neck and dramatic, medieval-looking sleeves. Her tiara was especially meaningful. She wore the Queen Mary fringe tiara, the exact one her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, had worn at her own wedding, a powerful symbol of continuity. Her wedding ring, in another nod to tradition, was crafted from that same nugget of Welsh gold used for the rings of her mother and grandmother. But woven into all that tradition were personal touches that really spoke to who they were as a couple. Captain Phillips chose not to wear a traditional morning suit. Instead, he wore the full dress uniform of his regiment, the Queen's Dragoon Guards, a proud statement of his own career and identity. Even the music reflected him, with trumpeters from his regiment playing a fanfare. And while the wedding cake was suitably grand, it was decorated with personal symbols like Anne's coat of arms and Mark's regimental crest. But the biggest break with tradition happened behind closed doors. It was widely reported that Mark Phillips was offered a title, likely an earldom, which was standard practice for commoners marrying into the inner circle of the royal family. However, in a joint decision with Anne, he turned it down, choosing to remain simply Captain Mark Phillips. Though never officially confirmed by the palace, this was a quiet but radical move. It signaled they wanted a more normal life and set a precedent for their future children, Peter and Zara. Their decision would make them the first grandchildren of a modern monarch to be born without titles, which Anne later said was for the best, believing it gave them more freedom. This choice, more than any other, showed that they were determined to do things their own way. After the wedding, Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips tried to build a life that balanced royal duty with their personal passions. The Queen gifted them Gatcombe Park, a sprawling country estate that they turned into a family home and equestrian paradise. They had 2 children, Peter in 1977 and Zara in 1981. Sticking to their earlier decision, neither child was given a royal title, allowing them to grow up mostly outside the strict, formal world of the monarchy. For years, their public life was a shared one. They were often seen together at horse trials, a united team bonded by their shared passion. And even competed in the 1976 Montreal Olympics, while Mark continued his own successful equestrian career. But behind the scenes, the pressure of their very different lives was mounting. Their schedules often pulled them in opposite directions. And had a demanding calendar of royal duties, while Mark was busy with his own equestrian-related business ventures. By the early 1980s, rumors began to spread that the couple was drifting apart. Soon, the marital strain was all over the tabloids, with rumors of affairs on both sides. In 1989, Buckingham Palace made a stunning announcement: the couple intended to separate, though they added there were no plans for a divorce. They shared custody of their children and tried to keep things civil. But the story took a dramatic turn in 1991, when it was confirmed through a DNA test that Mark Phillips had fathered a daughter in New Zealand with an art teacher named Heather Tonkin back in 1985. The revelation was a public humiliation for the princess, and it was the blow the marriage simply couldn't survive. In April 1992, Princess Anne filed for divorce, which was finalized just days later. It was a somber landmark for the modern monarchy. While other royals had divorced, Anne was the first of the Queen's children to do so, heralding a much more turbulent and realistic era for the House of Windsor. The story of the royals is filled with tales of tradition, duty, and complex human relationships. If you want to delve deeper into the history of the modern monarchy, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Just months after her divorce, in December 1992, Princess Anne quietly married Commander Timothy Lawrence, and they remain together to this day. Mark Phillips also remarried, though that marriage later ended in divorce. Despite the painful end to their own union, Anne and Mark managed to build a surprisingly friendly post-divorce relationship, often seen together cheering on their children, especially their daughter Zara, who followed in their footsteps to become an Olympic equestrian champion herself. The wedding of Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips truly was one of a kind. It started as a hopeful blend of pageantry and passion, a princess and a commoner who tried to create a more normal life. And while the fairy tale eventually crumbled under the weight of public pressure and private betrayal, their story left a lasting mark. Their marriage and its very public end signaled a major shift, proving that royals weren't immune to the messy realities of modern relationships. In doing so, they set a new, more transparent, and ultimately more human tone for the generations of royals who would follow.